Before judging me, let me tell you how I ended up here. A 75-year-old man standing on the edge of a life I thought I knew. On my birthday, I expected a simple lunch, dressed in my best jacket, hair combed neat, ready for laughter and warmth. Instead, I was handed a suitcase and abandoned, left to unravel a betrayal that wore my daughter's face, a betrayal that taught me family can cut deeper than any stranger. If you think deceit comes only from those outside your circle, wait until it carries your last name. Stay with me through this story, and let me know where you're watching from. They say a father's love is unconditional, patient, forgiving, and eternal. I believed that, lived it, and poured it into every moment of my daughter Emily's life. Every scraped knee I bandaged with care, every sleepless night I spent soothing her fears, every school play I clapped for in Carson's dusty community center. I was there, front row, heart full. On my 62nd birthday, I woke with a spark of hope in my small, weathered house on the edge of Carson, Nevada. The desert sun filtered through cracked blinds, casting stripes across the linoleum floor. The air was heavy with the scent of sagebrush and dust. Emily hadn't called much lately, blaming a demanding job at a Reno marketing firm and tension with her husband, but I was certain she'd show up today, her presence a gift brighter than any wrapped box. I made her favorite waffles, golden and crisp, their aroma filling the kitchen as I set 2 plates on the table, their edges chipped from years of family breakfasts. I waited, the clock ticking past 10, 11, noon, my heart dipping with each silent hour, the waffles growing cold, their syrup congealing. I refused to spiral, checking my phone a dozen times, rereading old texts, her brief, "Love you, Dad," from months ago, clinging to their fading warmth like a lifeline in the desert. The doorbell rang in the afternoon, a sharp chime cutting through the quiet, startling me from my thoughts. There stood Emily, her half-smile familiar but guarded, holding a grocery store bouquet, its petals curling in the dry Nevada heat, some already browning at the edges. "Happy birthday, Dad," she said, her voice light but distant, like a radio signal fading out across the vast desert. I smiled through the sting in my chest and hugged her tightly, her body stiff in my arms, her perfume sharp and unfamiliar, not the floral scent of her childhood. "You came?" I asked, hope rising like a fragile flame against the wind. "Of course," she replied, patting my back briefly, her touch mechanical, perfunctory. "Get dressed. I made lunch reservations." I didn't question it, grabbing my coat, a worn wall number I saved for special days, a small leather wallet with a cracked spine, and shoes that pinched my toes but polished up nicely, their shine a small act of pride. I felt a boyish excitement, like heading to a first date, my steps light despite the weight of 62 years, the creak of my knees a quiet reminder of time's passage. We drove, the hum of the car's engine filling the silence, but we didn't head toward Carson's diners, with their neon signs and greasy spoon charm, or Reno's city lights, where restaurants promised linen napkins and candlelight. Instead, we turned down a long, unfamiliar driveway lined with pine trees, their needles a mix of green and gold, swaying in the dry breeze, their scent sharp in the air. The sign ahead hit me like a punch to the gut, Sunset Haven Senior Living Facility. My stomach twisted, a cold dread pooling inside, my breath catching in my throat. "Emily, what is this?" I asked, my voice sharper than intended, cutting through the car's quiet. She cleared her throat, eyes fixed on the road, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, betraying her calm. "Dad, we need to talk. It's not safe for you to live alone anymore, with your memory lapses." "What memory lapses?" I snapped, my pulse quickening, the air in the car suddenly too thin, oppressive. She kept talking, her words rehearsed, a script she'd practiced, safety, comfort, activities, people my age, a community where I'd thrive, her voice steady but hollow. I laughed, a bitter sound that burned my throat, echoing off the dashboard, raw and jagged. "You're kidding. You brought me here on my birthday. This is your idea of a celebration." She parked, stepped out, and opened the trunk without meeting my eyes, her movements deliberate, avoiding my gaze. My suitcase sat there, packed, its zipper glinting like a blade in the harsh sunlight, a silent accusation. I stared, frozen, my breath shallow, the world tilting beneath me. You went through my things? My voice cracked, the betrayal sinking in like a slow poison, spreading through my veins. She sighed, impatient, her face a mask of resolve, her eyes flicking away. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I refused to move, my hands gripping the car seat, knuckles aching, but she stood firm, waiting, the suitcase a verdict already passed. Inside, the facility felt like time had stopped. Smiling staff at reception, their voices overly bright, practiced, the air thick with antiseptic and the faint, cloying odor of overcooked carrots. Emily handed over papers, legal documents, a power of attorney with my name, James Carter, and her signature, already notarized, the ink stark against the page, a betrayal formalized. I didn't cry, not yet, my jaw tight, my chest heavy as they led me to a room with beige walls, an adjustable bed with stiff rails, and a small window facing a concrete wall, its surface stained by years of desert dust, offering no view, no hope. My birthday gift, delivered without a bow, without a word of apology, just the cold efficiency of abandonment. I sat on the bed's edge, coat still on, the cold seeping through my bones despite the room's stuffy warmth, the radiator humming faintly. The bouquet, forgotten in the car, had wilted, its drooping petals a mirror of my spirit, crushed under the weight of this moment, their colors fading like my expectations. No cake, no candles, just silence, heavy and unyielding, broken only by the faint buzz of a fluorescent light overhead, its flicker a mocking pulse. Hours passed, the light outside dimming, the desert sky turning a bruised purple. That night, I lay awake, the mattress too firm, the sheets smelling of bleach, their texture rough against my skin, clinical, impersonal. The quiet was pierced by the rustle of nurses' footsteps in the hallway, the distant hum of a TV down the hall, its canned laughter a cruel contrast to my solitude. I replayed every conversation with Emily from the past year, searching for signs I'd missed, the curt phone calls, the vague excuses about her job, the way she'd dodge questions about her life, her husband, her plans. I thought of all the times I said yes when I should have said no, the money I lent for her, emergencies, the excuses I made to friends when she skipped family dinners, blaming her busy schedule. I'd swallowed disappointment because I loved her, believed in her, wanted her to thrive, but that night, I stopped defending her. Something cracked inside me, something essential, like a bone that wouldn't heal right, leaving a permanent ache, a scar on my heart. The next morning, I asked a nurse for my cell phone, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands, the weight of the night still pressing on my chest. She hesitated, her smile faltering, then said Emily had taken care of it, disabling the line because it was too confusing for me, her words careful, rehearsed. The implication landed like a slap, sharp and stinging. I wasn't here to be cared for. I was here to be erased, tucked away in a beige room where my questions, my voice, couldn't reach her. If I didn't find a way out, they'd succeed, and I'd fade into the background noise of this place, another forgotten soul. But I wasn't as frail as they thought, not even close, my mind still sharp, my will unbroken. For 2 days, I stopped eating, not as a protest but because I couldn't stomach the food. Soggy oatmeal that clung to the spoon, tasteless stew that smelled of despair, or the truth that sat heavier in my gut, a leaden weight. Being treated as useless breaks a part of you that doesn't fully mend, a wound that festers in the quiet moments, in the spaces between forced smiles and routine checks. I'd raised a daughter, built a home with my late wife, Laura, loved fiercely through decades of struggle. Lean years when we scraped by, joyful years when Emily's laughter filled our house. And now I was just a room number, a patient chart in a binder, my life reduced to a checklist of medications and mealtimes, my identity stripped away. The nurses were kind, mostly, their voices soft, their hands gentle as they adjusted pillows or checked charts, but their kindness felt like pity when you're trapped, a velvet cage that suffocates as much as it comforts. They called me, dear, or, hon, as if I were a child or a century old, their words stripping away the man I'd been, a mechanic who fixed engines under Carson's unrelenting sun, a father who carried Emily on his shoulders through county fairs, her giggles louder than the carnival music. No one asked what I'd done before, what I loved, what stories lay behind my lined face, the wrinkles carved by years of laughter and loss. To them, I was just another old man in slippers, supposedly forgetting things I hadn't. My mind as sharp as the day I rebuilt my first carburetor, each bolt and gasket a puzzle I solved with precision. My roommate, Walter, slept all day, his snores a constant drone, his thin frame barely stirring under the blanket, his presence a ghost in the room. When he spoke, it was about family who hadn't visited in years, his voice thin with longing, his eyes distant, fixed on a past that no longer answered. I listened, knowing the ache of absence too well, the hollow space where love used to live, now filled with echoes. To keep my mind sharp, I watched news in the common room, the TV's flicker casting shadows on the faded wallpaper, reports of distant wars and local politics grounding me in the world beyond these walls. I worked crossword puzzles left in the hallway, the grids a small rebellion against the fog they assumed clouded my mind, each word a victory. I reread a novel I'd brought, its pages yellowed but familiar, the words a tether when the world felt like it was slipping away. But something in me was sinking, deeper, darker, a weight I couldn't name, pulling me toward despair. On the fourth day, I met Jamal. He wasn't scheduled, filling in for a sick nurse, his dreadlocks tucked under a scrub cap, his eyes carrying a kindness that didn't patronize, a warmth like sunlight breaking through a long Nevada winter. While checking my vitals, his fingers steady on my wrist, counting the pulse that still fought, he said, "You don't belong here." I looked up, startled, my heart stuttering, the words cutting through the haze. He smiled, warm but sure, his voice low, conspiratorial. "Don't get me wrong. Some folks need this place, and that's okay. But you don't seem lost." His words pierced the fog in my chest, a lifeline I hadn't expected, a spark in the darkness. We got to talking, his questions gentle but real, and I told him about Emily, my voice steady despite the ache, the betrayal spilling out in quiet fragments, her distance, the suitcase, the papers. He listened, not just nodding but truly hearing me, his eyes never leaving mine, his presence a rare gift in a place built on routine and indifference. Later that day, he slipped back, his footsteps soft against the linoleum, and whispered, "This belonged to Mr. Thompson, a resident who passed last week. Found it tucked inside a book, unclaimed." He handed me a lottery ticket, folded, yellowed, dated 2 weeks earlier, its edges frayed like a forgotten promise, the numbers faded but legible. I chuckled, the sound dry and brittle, like leaves crunching underfoot in the desert autumn. "You want me to try my luck?" I asked, raising an eyebrow, the idea absurd in the face of my reality. He winked, his grin boyish, full of mischief. "Hey, the world owes you something, man." I didn't plan to do anything with it, not at first. It felt silly, a child's game in a world that had turned cruel, a world where trust was a luxury I could no longer afford. But boredom and desperation make strange bedfellows, their whispers louder in the dead of night, when the facility's silence was thickest. That night, I waited until the hallways were quiet, the nurses at their station, the residents asleep or lost in their own worlds. I used one of the facility's ancient desktops in the lounge, its hum loud in the stillness, the screen casting a pale, ghostly glow across my face. I typed the ticket's numbers with trembling fingers, each keystroke a small act of defiance, a refusal to let this place define me. My hand froze as the page loaded, the numbers aligning like stars in a clear Nevada sky, unmistakable, undeniable. $8 million. I scanned the page again, heart hammering in my chest, my breath shallow, the silence that followed deafening, pressing against my eardrums. I covered my mouth with both hands, looking around. No one was there, just the empty lounge, the flicker of the TV in the corner, the hum of the computer. I printed the confirmation, the printer's whine piercing the quiet, and folded the paper small, tucking it inside my shirt, close to my skin, its weight both anchor and chain. It wasn't joy I felt, not even close. It was fear, pure and electric, a current jolting every nerve, a realization that this ticket could save me or destroy me. If Emily found out, if anyone in this place did, I'd lose everything, my freedom, my future, my life. The next day, I found Jamal in the hallway, his cart of medical supplies a familiar sight, and pulled him aside, my voice low, urgent, barely above a whisper. "I need to talk to someone privately," someone legal, someone I can trust. He didn't ask why, didn't hesitate, just nodded, his eyes steady, his trust a rare gift in a place where suspicion was the norm. I know someone, he said, voice quiet. He connected me with Sarah, a volunteer attorney who came by twice a month to help seniors with wills and legal matters. Her visit's a quiet lifeline for those forgotten by the world. I waited, heart pounding, until she arrived that Friday, her sharp eyes framed by glasses, her briefcase worn but professional, her presence calm but focused. We sat in the tiny break room, the smell of stale coffee lingering, and I slid her the lottery confirmation, its creases worn from my grip, the numbers stark against the paper. "Can you help me disappear?" I whispered, my voice barely audible, the weight of the request heavy between us. Her eyebrows rose, a flicker of surprise, but she didn't flinch, her calm steadying me like a hand on my shoulder. "We'll need to move fast," she said, her voice a promise, firm and resolute. The next hours were a blur of activity, a whirlwind of paperwork, notarizations, financial transfers, each step a brick in the wall I was building to protect myself. Sarah contacted an independent financial advisor who set up a blind trust, my name nowhere visible, the funds untouchable, a fortress against Emily's reach. She arranged a new phone, a temporary mailing address, each detail a thread in the tapestry of my escape. I signed a new will, leaving everything to charity, the specifics undisclosed for now, a silent vow that Emily had signed away my life once, but never again. Brandon had already taken so much, my trust, my peace, and I wouldn't let her take this, too. Jamal hugged me on the night I left, his arms strong, his whisper warm against my ear. "Don't forget us when you're free, James." I didn't cry. I couldn't, not yet, the weight of survival too heavy for tears. I slipped away just before dawn, wearing clothes that weren't mine, a plain jacket, jeans that didn't quite fit, a cap pulled low, carrying a duffel with only the essentials, a change of clothes, my worn novel, the lottery ticket, the confirmation folded tight. They thought I was senile, broken, alone, but I was about to become a ghost, $8 million in my shadow, a phantom they'd never see coming. The bus ride out of Nevada was long, quiet, and cold, the desert stretching endlessly outside the window, its vastness both freeing and daunting, a canvas of sand and sagebrush under a sky too big to hold my pain. I sat near the back, hood up, sunglasses on, clutching the duffel like it held my soul, and in many ways, it did, carrying the fragments of a life I was leaving behind. I didn't know exactly where I was going, only that it had to be far enough that no one could find me. Not Emily, not her husband, not the lawyers she'd likely already called, their voices sharp with accusations. Sarah had helped me purchase a modest house under the new trust's name in rural Oregon, something off the grid but livable, no cameras, no neighbors too close, just pine forests and the kind of silence that heals. When we crossed the Idaho border, I exhaled for the first time in hours, the air tasting of freedom, metallic like blood and fear, sharp on my tongue, a flavor I'd never forget. The house was nothing fancy, a single-story brick structure with chipped paint, a crooked mailbox leaning like a tired sentinel, the porch sagging under years of neglect. But it had a working heater, clean water, and most importantly, silence. Not the suffocating kind of Sunset Haven, surrounded by people who'd given up, but the kind that let you breathe, let you think, let you rebuild. The next few days, I lived like a shadow, moving through the house with cautious steps, as if the walls might betray me. I cooked simple meals. Beans, rice, eggs, the basics I'd learned to stretch during lean years with Laura. Walked to the mailbox through grass heavy with morning dew. Sat on the porch wrapped in an old quilt I found in the closet, watching the wind carry dead leaves across the yard.
Hello. Thanks for watching and being part of this journey. If you enjoy story like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support means the world. Now let's dive into the story.
Their rustle a quiet song. I checked news obsessively on a second-hand laptop, half expecting my name to appear in bold letters. Missing man wins millions, daughter claims mental instability. But there was nothing, not yet, the world indifferent to my absence, my survival. I kept the lottery ticket in a fireproof box under the floorboard in the hallway closet, alongside the new will, a burner phone, and a note addressed to Whomever finds this, a safeguard, a testament to my truth, just in case the world came looking. One morning, about a week after I left Sunset Haven, the quiet shattered with a knock at the door, my heart beating like a war drum in my chest, each thud echoing in my ears. I froze, hadn't told a soul where I was, didn't even have a credit card linked to my name. I tiptoed to the window and peeked through the curtain. Just a delivery man, groceries, part of the arrangement Sarah had set up, his truck's logo mundane but reassuring, a reminder of the world's normalcy. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were watching, that footsteps lingered just beyond my sight. That afternoon, curiosity got the better of me, a pull I couldn't resist. I created a fake Facebook profile, my fingers hesitant on the keys, the glow of the laptop screen harsh in the dim room. I searched for Emily, and there she was, smiling in her profile picture like the world hadn't fallen apart, her eyes bright but cold, a performance perfected. In her latest post, she wrote, "If anyone has seen my father, James Carter, please contact me or the Carson police. He's been missing for several days. We worried about his safety." Beneath it, hundreds of comments poured in. Prayers, condolences, people praising Emily for being such a devoted daughter, their words a chorus of ignorance. I laughed so hard I cried, the sound raw, echoing in the empty house, tears burning my cheeks. Oh, they had no idea, none. But what truly broke me wasn't the post, it was the photo she used. It wasn't recent. It was from 5 years ago, one of the last birthdays we celebrated together in Carson's community center. I had a sparkly party hat on, tilted at an absurd angle, and she had her arm around me, both of us laughing, the cake's candles flickering, the room warm with love. How easy it is to perform love in pictures, to craft a lie the world believes. That night, I couldn't sleep, the Oregon darkness thick outside my window, the trees swaying in a restless wind. I sat in the living room, staring at the fireplace, the embers glowing like distant stars, my thoughts going in circles, each one darker than the last. I remembered every time I'd given Emily money, every loan, every lie she told, the subtle ways she'd gaslit me. She'd say things like, "You told me that already," when I hadn't, or, "You're forgetting more these days," her voice soft but pointed, planting seeds of doubt in my mind. I thought I was aging poorly, that my mind was fraying, that it was my fault, my failure. It wasn't. She wanted me to doubt myself, to question my own reality, so when she took control of my life, I wouldn't resist, wouldn't fight. Well, I was done being controlled, done being the father who forgave without question. The next morning, I called Sarah from the burner number, my voice steady, resolute. "I need you to update my will again," I said. She didn't ask why, her professionalism a comfort. "What changes? I want to make it very clear that Emily Carter receives absolutely nothing. Not a dollar, not a keepsake, not a memory." "Done," she said, her tone calm but firm. "You're safe now, James." But I wasn't, not yet, because deep down, I knew something was coming, a reckoning I needed to be ready for, a storm gathering on the horizon. It started with a letter, a plain envelope with no return address, tucked among utility bills and junk mail in the mailbox's rusted mouth, its presence unassuming but heavy. I wouldn't have noticed it if not for the paper, thicker, more expensive than the usual flyers. My stomach turned the second I touched it, a primal instinct warning me of danger. Inside was a single sheet, a photocopy of my signature, or what looked like it, below 2 others, one from my late wife, Laura, and another from Emily. It was a loan document, dated 12 years ago, a personal loan taken out in both Laura's and my names. The bank's logo was real, the notary stamp crisp, but I'd never signed that paper, never seen it, never heard of it. I sat down on the worn sofa, the letter trembling in my hands, the document's details blurring as my mind raced. The signature had my handwriting down to the loop in the J of James, but something about it was off. Too clean, too practiced, not the hurried scrawl of a man signing in trust. Laura would never have hidden a loan like that, not from me, not after 30 years of sharing every burden. And Emily, she never said a word, never hinted at it, even as she asked for help, time and again. I pulled out the fireproof box from under the floorboards, my hands steady despite the churn in my gut, and retrieved the older file folder Sarah had helped me compile, a collection of past financial documents we'd salvaged before I left Carson. Inside, I found 3 more forms, all with my forged signature, each one a knife in the heart, their dates spanning years. A cold realization slithered through me. Emily had been stealing from Laura and me for over a decade. It explained the strange tension in our final years together, the way Laura avoided certain financial topics, her eyes clouded with worry I mistook for fatigue. It explained how we suddenly had less cancelled vacation plans, the bad investments I'd blamed on the market, the quiet arguments at night I thought were about work stress. Emily always seemed to need money for an emergency, a broken car, a medical bill, but drove a newer car every year, her lifestyle untouched by the crises she claimed. I'd blamed aging, the economy, a general turn of luck, but it was Emily, all along, draining us, betraying us behind the mask of a devoted daughter. I didn't cry, not this time, my grief hardened into resolve. Instead, I opened my laptop and began digging deeper, the Oregon rain drumming on the roof, a steady rhythm matching my pulse. Over the next 3 days, I pieced it all together, the screen's glow a beacon in the dark, my coffee growing cold beside me. Emily had falsified several loan documents using Laura's social security number and mine, the amounts varying but substantial, some paid off, others quietly rolled into debt collections, their balances ballooning with interest. Laura must have covered most of it before she died, taking the shame with her, her silence a sacrifice to protect me, to keep our family whole. But one account, still active, showed a ballooning balance of over $10,000, defaulted under my name just 3 months before I was dropped at Sunset Haven, the timing too precise to be coincidence. I sat in the darkness of that little Oregon living room, the screen glowing in front of me, my hands clenched so tight my knuckles ached, the truth sinking in like a stone. This wasn't just betrayal. It was theft, fraud, a criminal act woven into the fabric of our family. I reached out to Sarah again, my voice low, controlled, though anger simmered beneath. I have new information, I told her, the words heavy. Forged documents, loans. Emily did it. She believed me, her calm a steadying force. Do you want to press charges? She asked, her tone professional but tinged with empathy. Not yet, I said, my mind already turning, planning. I'm not ready, not because I have doubts, those are gone. I want her to feel the fear first, the silence of not knowing, the weight of her own lies. I wanted her to wonder if I knew, to look over her shoulder, to feel the ground shift beneath her as I had. I began gathering every document I could, every account tied to my name, every old email Emily had sent on my behalf, every financial notice that hinted at her deceit. With Sarah's help, I contacted the old bank we used in Carson, requesting records under a legal pretext she drafted, her expertise opening doors I couldn't. The puzzle formed, and what it revealed made my blood run cold. Emily had taken out a high-interest loan against the small business I'd co-founded with Laura back in the 80s, a catering venture we ran from our garage in those early, hopeful years. She used that LLC, still technically active, to secure a line of credit, signing it using Laura's name 2 years after Laura had died. A federal crime, undeniable, a betrayal that twisted the knife deeper. I saved everything to an encrypted folder, backed it up twice, and printed a copy to store in the fireproof box beneath the floorboards, the papers heavy in my hands, a tangible weight of truth. I wasn't sure how long I had, because if Emily was as desperate as I suspected, and if she had even the slightest clue that I'd vanished with millions, she'd be coming for me soon, her desperation a predator's instinct. Have you ever looked at someone you loved your entire life and realized you never truly knew them? That's what it felt like, scrolling through pages of documents that tied my daughter to a trail of deceit so long and tangled it made my stomach churn. The girl I once rocked to sleep in my arms, whose laughter filled our Carson home, had grown into a stranger, not just any stranger, but a dangerous one, her devotion a mask, her love a transaction. The darkest truth came through a simple search, buried in a public database, with a little help from Sarah's access to legal records. I found it, and my heart stopped. Emily Carter, currently under federal investigation for fraudulent tax filings, embezzlement, and identity misuse. Identity misuse. That one hit hardest, a blow to the chest. I clicked on the case file, my hands trembling, the details mostly redacted but the accusations clear. Emily had been creating false identities, inflating incomes, falsifying deductions, and submitting returns to siphon money through refunds. Some of those identities were deceased, some elderly, some real people, including me. The IRS had flagged several returns filed in my name over the past 3 years. Returns I had no knowledge of, no hand in. I stared at the screen, my mind spiraling, the room closing in. Had she planned to take my money from the beginning? Was this the reason she was so quick to shove me into Sunset Haven, to shut down my phone, to cut me off from the world? It wasn't concern, it was containment, a calculated move to keep me silent, disoriented, a loose end in her messy, fraudulent story. Only now, I wasn't just a loose end. I was the one holding the thread, ready to pull. I didn't call the police, not yet. Instead, I started documenting everything. Every lie, every loan, every forged line on a piece of paper. I printed them, filed them in manila folders, labeled them with dates, my hands steady despite the storm inside. I began recording audio notes, not because I was scared of forgetting, but because I wanted my voice to be the last one in the room if anything happened to me. My words, clear and deliberate, would outlast any attempt to silence me. Then I made a choice. I mailed a copy of the entire file, anonymously, to the Department of Justice, not to make a statement, not yet, but to plant a seed. They'd have the evidence if something ever happened to me. They'd know where to look, who to question. Still, I couldn't stop the feeling that she knew, that she was watching. I started noticing cars parked longer than usual near the house, their engines idling, headlights cutting through the Oregon fog. Once, a man knocked on the door, claiming he was doing a survey of the neighborhood. I didn't open it, just watched from behind the curtain, phone in hand, my heart a drumbeat. Every knock, every ring, made me jump, my nerves frayed, but I didn't run. Not this time. I made another call to Sarah, my voice firm. We need to finalize the trust, I told her. The will, too. I want everything protected, airtight. She agreed, and we set it all up in my new name, with layers of legal insulation, a fortress of paperwork and strategy. If Emily ever tried to claim a cent, she'd be bounced out of every court in the country, her greed meeting a wall of my making. But as much as I tried to shield myself with paper and plans, the emotional blow hit in the quietest moments. I'd sit at night, the Oregon stars bright through the window, and remember Emily as a girl. Her laugh as I pushed her on the swing, her scraped knees I kissed better, the way she'd fall asleep on my chest, her small hand curled around my finger. I'd remember the teenage years, when things got harder, her silences, her rebellion, but I never gave up, never stopped believing in her. The college calls, the sudden distance, the growing gap. How did I miss it? How long had she been slipping away while I kept holding on, hoping it was something else, a phase, a misunderstanding? Maybe that's the worst kind of betrayal, the one you watch unfold in slow motion, always hoping it's not what it seems, but now I knew, and I wasn't going to let her rewrite the end of my story. For the first time in my life, I held the pen, and I was writing my own ending. The letter came in a plain white envelope, no return address, but the moment I saw the handwriting, I knew. Emily had always written in sharp, slanted strokes, as if her pen couldn't wait to be done with whatever she was doing, her impatience etched into every line. Inside, a single sentence. I know what you did, and this isn't over. I read it twice, 3 times, then I laughed, not out of amusement, but because it was the exact kind of arrogance I expected from her, the same arrogance that had driven her to pack my suitcase, to sign my name, to lock me away. No, I miss you. No, where are you? Just a warning, a threat, a glimpse of the daughter I no longer recognized. I folded the letter neatly and slid it into my growing folder of evidence, its words fuel for my resolve. By now, I'd been gone almost 3 weeks, and Emily had launched what looked like a public campaign of concern, begging for information, giving interviews to local Carson news stations, playing the role of heartbroken daughter searching for her confused, vulnerable father. It would have been comical if it weren't so chilling, her performance polished, her tears perfectly timed. And then, just as I feared, she made her move. A letter arrived from the county courthouse in Carson, Official, certified, the envelope heavy with consequence. I signed for it with trembling hands and sat down to open it at the kitchen table, the wood scarred from years of use, a reminder of a life I was fighting to reclaim. Emily had filed a petition to have me declared mentally incapacitated, the words stark on the page, a legal assault on my autonomy. I couldn't breathe for a moment, the air punched from my lungs, the document shaking in my hands. It included statements from two people claiming I'd shown erratic and confused behavior over the past year. One was a former neighbor, the other her old college friend, someone I barely knew, their words rehearsed, bought, or coerced. Emily's lawyer had submitted audio clips, too, snippets of old voicemails I'd left when I was distressed, lonely, or simply venting, chopped and edited to make me sound unwell, unstable, a man unraveling. She even attached a letter from a psychiatrist, one I'd never met, claiming concern over my disappearance and paranoid behavior. They wanted the court to freeze my accounts, to seize control of the trust, to drag me back to a cage, to silence me for good. I felt the world tilt, the room spinning, but I forced myself to breathe, to focus, to fight. Sarah came that same night, her face unreadable as she read the petition, her briefcase heavy with purpose. "We've got work to do," she finally said, her voice steady, grounding me. "James, you need to be calm, need to stay sharp. They're counting on panic." I nodded, too numb to cry, the weight of the fight settling on my shoulders. The next few days moved like a storm, a flurry of preparation. Sarah contacted an experienced litigator to help us prepare, and we gathered documents, video calls, financial logs, even a data journal I'd kept to prove I'd been of sound mind every day since I left Sunset Haven. We scheduled an independent psychiatric evaluation, and the doctor, a kind woman named Dr. Ellis, came to the house, her presence calm, her questions real. She spent 3 hours with me, asking about my childhood in Carson, my years with Laura, my love for fixing engines, my pain over Emily's betrayal. I told her everything, my voice raw but clear, the truth spilling out like water from a broken dam. She didn't pity me. She listened, her eyes warm, her notes meticulous. When she left, she touched my hand and said, "You're the most lucid person I've seen this week." It felt like the first breath I'd taken in days, a moment of clarity in the chaos. The pressure mounted as news of the hearing leaked, the internet catching fire with speculation. Carson forums, Reddit threads, X posts. They questioned my absence, my stability, whether someone else was pulling my strings, their words a mix of curiosity and cruelty. The media loves a mystery, and Emily knew how to feed them one, her interviews painting me as a puppet, vulnerable, lost to my own mind. But I wasn't afraid anymore, because now I had more than just proof. I had purpose, a fire kindled in the ashes of betrayal, burning bright. In the quiet of my small Oregon home, I began preparing a video statement, my voice steady into the laptop's camera. I didn't publish it, not yet, but I wanted to be ready, just in case they silenced me. "My name is James Carter," I said, looking into the lens, my eyes unwavering. "I am of sound mind, and I was betrayed by the person I trusted most." I didn't cry, didn't scream, just told the truth, because I knew what was coming, and this time, I wouldn't be the one on trial. The courthouse in Carson hadn't changed since the last time I'd passed through it years ago, when I paid a parking ticket and sat in a room full of people hoping to forget their mistakes. Back then, I was a husband, a father, someone who believed in second chances, in the goodness of those I loved. Now, I was the accused, my autonomy on trial. Sarah had advised me to dress simple but strong, something that said, "I'm not here to beg. I'm here to be heard." I wore a navy blue coat with silver buttons, Laura's old watch ticking on my wrist, a pair of sensible shoes that clicked defiantly with each step through the courthouse halls, the sound echoing off the polished floors. Emily was already seated at the front of the courtroom when I arrived, and she stood as I entered, like a perfect performance, a mask of concern draped over her face. She even offered a smile, the kind strangers would interpret as warmth, but I saw it for what it was, a lie, a tactic, a final attempt to bury me. I didn't give her the satisfaction of meeting her eyes, my gaze fixed forward, my heart steady. The judge, an older man with tired eyes and a lined face, introduced the case, his voice gravelly but clear. in the matter of James Carter's mental competency. The words hung in the air like smoke, heavy, suffocating. Emily's attorney went first, a tall man with a polished voice and too much confidence, his suit crisp, his words rehearsed. He laid it out like a script. James had gone missing, James was behaving erratically, James was possibly being manipulated, James was a danger to himself and his finances. He introduced the psychiatrist's letter, from a doctor I'd never met, and presented those audio clips of me. Edited, spliced, my voice sounding scattered, desperate, unstable, taken completely out of context, each word a distortion of my truth. I listened to myself sound like a man unhinged, the judge's eyebrows rising, his pen pausing over his notes, and my hands clenched around the armrest, nails digging into the wood, my anger a quiet fire. Then Emily spoke, her voice trembling just the right amount, a performance honed over years. "Your Honor," she said, eyes glistening, "I love my father, I really do. This is the hardest thing I've ever done, but I believe he's being taken advantage of. He's not himself, he's lost." That's when I stood, my turn, my moment. The judge nodded, and I walked slowly to the stand, pausing just enough to let the weight of my presence settle, to let the room feel me, a man unbroken. I spoke, my voice clear, steady, cutting through the haze of lies. "My name is James Carter. I am 62 years old. I am not mentally impaired, I am not lost, and I am not anyone's victim." I opened my folder methodically, carefully, and handed a copy of Dr. Ellis's full psychiatric report to the judge. Signed, dated, certified, the verdict unequivocal. Completely sound mind. No indicators of cognitive decline. Emotionally stable despite profound betrayal. I watched Emily's attorney's shoulders tense, a subtle shift, and Emily's face twitched, a crack in her facade. Then I continued, my voice unwavering. "I have here," I said, lifting a second folder, a log of every phone call I made the week before I left, receipts for the transfer of funds to a legal trust, medical records, clean, and a signed affidavit from the attorney who helped me exit the facility, stating I was lucid, logical, and in full control of my decisions. I paused, letting the words land, my eyes scanning the room, meeting the judge's gaze. "I also have something else, but I won't be presenting that today, not unless I need to." I didn't show the file, the one with every fraudulent signature, every stolen loan, every manipulated tax document Emily had ever touched. That was my ace, held close, a weapon for the right moment. Instead, I turned to the judge, my voice softening but firm. "She put me in a facility without my consent, took my phone, took my freedom, and now she wants to take what little I have left, my voice, my independence, my dignity. Don't let her." The courtroom was still, a hush falling over the room, the air thick with the weight of truth. Sarah sat beside me, silent but steady, her eyes meeting mine, proud but not surprised, her faith in me a quiet strength. The judge leaned back, his thumb tapping the file, his expression unreadable but attentive. "I need time to review all documents and the medical evaluation," he said, his voice measured. "The court will reconvene in 2 weeks." Emily turned toward me as the session ended, trying to catch my eye, her smile faltering, but I didn't give her the satisfaction, my gaze fixed on the door. She left the courtroom with clenched fists, her jaw set tight, her mask cracking under the pressure. I walked out with my head high, the war not over, but for the first time, I knew I could win it, that I was no longer the prey but the hunter. 2 weeks, that's how long the judge gave us, but Emily didn't waste a single day. Within hours of leaving the courthouse, she doubled down on her public campaign, her desperation palpable. The local Carson News ran a new segment. "Missing father reappears in court, daughter fears exploitation." Emily spoke directly to the camera, her eyes moist, her voice shaking just enough to sell the lie. "I just want to make sure my father is safe," she said, her words dripping with concern. "He's been through a lot, he's not thinking clearly, and I'm afraid there are people around him with bad intentions." I watched the broadcast from my Oregon living room, arms folded, jaw tight, the rain drumming on the roof, a steady counterpoint to my rising anger. There were no bad people around me, no shadowy figures, just James Carter, the father who raised her, who sacrificed vacations, pawned watches, forgave more than any father should, and she had the audacity to paint me as a puppet, a man lost to his own mind. That was the moment I knew the silent war I'd declared in my heart was no longer enough. I needed to act, to strike, to reclaim my story. I called Sarah and asked her to come by, the urgency in my voice unmistakable. When she arrived, I handed her the sealed envelope with every document I'd collected. The fraudulent loans, the forged signatures, the tax returns Emily had filed under my name, each piece a nail in the coffin of her lies. Send it, I said, my voice steady, resolute. Not to the court, to the Department of Justice, anonymously. She opened the envelope, flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning the evidence, and nodded, a flicker of admiration in her gaze. This will get their attention, she said, her tone certain. I'm counting on it. But I wasn't done, not by a long shot. That night, using one of my new aliases and a fresh online account, I made a sizable donation, $5 million, to a national non-profit organization that protects elderly individuals from financial abuse. No name attached, just the transfer, the funds a silent weapon. Within a week, they launched a campaign, using my case as a symbol, though they didn't name me directly. The timing was too perfect, the parallels too clear, and people started whispering, sharing, questioning on X and beyond. How does a father vanish, then reappear with money, but his own daughter tries to lock him away? Comments flooded social media. Something's off with the daughter, let him speak, I don't trust her. And Emily's carefully constructed image began to wobble, cracks spreading like fractures in glass. Then came a break I hadn't expected. A journalist from a major newspaper, Rachel, reached out to Sarah, wanting to hear my side of the story, promising discretion. No names, no photos, just truth. I agreed, my resolve hardening. We met at a quiet cafe 2 towns over, the kind with chipped mugs and locals who mind their own business. I wore sunglasses and a hat, and we sat in the corner booth, the hum of conversation shielding us. She hit record, her eyes steady, and let me talk. I told her about Sunset Haven, being dropped there without warning, the suitcase packed without my knowledge, Emily taking my phone, my accounts, my dignity. I didn't mention the lottery, not yet, the secret too heavy, too dangerous. When she asked about the court case, I said simply, she's trying to take control of my life, again. The story ran 2 days later, headlined, Father or Fraud, the silencing of James C. It didn't take long for the dots to connect, for people online to speculate. Was the missing father the anonymous donor? Was this why his daughter wanted him declared incompetent? The whispers grew louder, the doubts sharper, and still I remained quiet, because Emily's downfall wouldn't come from an accusation. It would come from a reckoning, a fire I was stoking with every move. 2 days before the court reconvened, Sarah received a call, her voice tense but steady when she relayed it to me. It was from the Department of Justice. They had received our anonymous file and were opening a case, Emily's name on the docket, her crimes laid bare. She didn't know it yet, but while she was building a castle of lies in courtrooms and cameras, I was setting fire to the foundation, and the flames were getting higher, their heat undeniable. The second hearing felt colder, not because of the weather, though the Oregon wind had turned cruel that week, biting through my coat, but because something had shifted in the air around us, a tension that hung like storm clouds. Emily walked into the courtroom looking less confident, her shoulders not quite as high, her lawyer whispering urgently as they took their seats, their faces tight with worry. They'd seen the article, the shift online, the cracks in their narrative. They were feeling the pressure, the weight of truth closing in. I sat calmly, my folder of documents neatly tucked into my lap, my hands steady, my heart no longer racing but burning with purpose. This time, we went first. Sarah opened with a statement that silenced the courtroom, her voice clear, commanding. Your Honor, she began, since the last hearing, we've completed a full independent psychiatric evaluation, submitted detailed financial logs proving Mr. Carter's independence and coherence, and have discovered, through legitimate public records, that the petitioner, Ms. Emily Carter, is currently under federal investigation for multiple financial crimes, including identity misuse and tax fraud. She handed the judge a copy of the public case docket, the paper crisp, the evidence irrefutable. Emily's attorney stood up immediately, protesting, his voice sharp. That investigation has no bearing on. The judge held up a hand, his expression stern. Sit down. The courtroom held its breath, the air electric with anticipation. Then came the real blow. Dr. Ellis, my independent evaluator, took the stand, calm, intelligent, direct, her presence a beacon of truth. She confirmed that I was not only mentally competent but emotionally sound, fully aware of my decisions, including my choice to leave Sunset Haven. Mr. Carter is not only clear, she said, her voice steady, her eyes meeting the judge's, he's deliberate, thoughtful. There is no medical basis for any declaration of incompetence. I looked at Emily then, her hands gripping the table so tightly her knuckles were white, her mask, that carefully constructed facade of concern, unraveling by the second, her eyes darting, searching for an escape that wasn't there. Sarah then presented our final piece of evidence, a timeline that showed exactly when Emily attempted to seize control of my accounts and how those attempts perfectly coincided with large withdrawals she made from her own failing business. Coincidence? Hardly, the pattern as clear as the desert sky. Emily was offered the opportunity to respond, and she stood, her voice cracking, her composure fraying. My father is sick, she said, her words faltering. He's clearly being manipulated by someone. He wouldn't act like this unless he was confused or unstable. This isn't him. I stood then, and I faced her directly, my eyes locking onto hers, the room fading away, just the two of us in that moment. I am him, I said, my voice steady, resonant, cutting through her lies like a blade. The courtroom went still, every eye on me, every breath held. I am the man who stayed up with you when you had the flu at age 6, who gave up vacations, who pawned jewelry to pay for your college classes, who cooked your favorite meal even when I couldn't afford groceries for myself. I am him, and you left me in a facility like I was nothing. I turned to the judge, my voice softening, but my resolve ironclad. And now, Your Honor, I ask you to let me prove that I am not nothing. The judge leaned forward, steepled his fingers, and spoke slowly, his words measured but final. Mr. Carter, based on the overwhelming evidence provided, your psychiatric evaluation, and the inconsistencies in the petitioner's claims, I am dismissing this case. Your financial accounts and personal autonomy are fully restored. This court recognizes you as competent and independent. I didn't cry, but my hands trembled slightly as I picked up my papers, the weight of victory heavy but real. Emily didn't say a word as I passed, her eyes wild, not with anger but with fear. She knew it was over, at least this part. But what she didn't know was that while she'd spent weeks trying to prove I was unstable, I'd been building something far more powerful than a defense, a legacy, a truth that would outlast her lies. The phone call came just after midnight, Sarah's voice tense but steady, cutting through the quiet of my Oregon home. It happened, she said. The DOJ opened formal proceedings. Emily's name is on the docket. I didn't speak, just sat there in the dark, staring out at the wind shifting the trees beyond my window, their branches swaying like ghosts. A part of me had been waiting for this moment, had imagined it in the sleepless nights, but now that it had come, it didn't feel victorious. It felt inevitable, a chapter closing. The next morning, the world caught up, the media swarming with headlines. Emily Carter, daughter of recently spotlighted elder abuse case, under federal investigation. My name wasn't mentioned, not directly, but the dots were too close not to connect, the public's curiosity a fire I'd helped kindle. People remembered the missing father, the court battle, the anonymous donor, a frail man who disappeared but stood strong in court weeks later. Now, their perfect daughter was unraveling, and they wanted to hear from me. I stayed quiet for 2 days, turned off the TV, ignored the phone, let the world's noise fade. I cooked myself breakfast, eggs and toast, simple but grounding, watched the birds peck at the frost-bitten yard, sat with a pen in hand and wrote letters I never intended to send, to Laura, to Emily's younger self, to the man I used to be. But silence wasn't justice, it was time to speak. I reached out to Rachel, the journalist who had met me in secret weeks earlier, and told her I was ready to speak, this time on camera, no aliases, no more shadows. We scheduled the interview for the following Friday, national news, a full feature. She asked if I was sure, her voice gentle but probing. I've never been more, I said, my resolve a steel core within me. The day of the interview, I dressed simply. A grey sweater, small silver cufflinks Laura had given me years ago, no makeup stylist, just truth, raw and unadorned. We sat across from each other in a quiet studio, the lights soft and warm, the camera a silent witness. Rachel leaned forward, her eyes steady, her voice calm. James, the world knows the headlines. They've read about Emily, about the case, but what they don't know is the heart of it. Why now? I looked directly into the camera, my voice clear, unwavering. Because it's not just about me, I said, the words carrying the weight of every sleepless night, every betrayal. It's every parent who gave everything and was thrown away, every older adult dismissed, erased, or locked up under the excuse of love. I was almost one of them, and I won't be quiet anymore. Then I told my story, the nursing home, the suitcase, the lottery ticket, the lies I uncovered, the file I sent, the courtroom battles. I left out nothing, the truth spilling out like a river breaking free. Rachel's eyes welled as I spoke, but I didn't cry. I was done crying, done grieving the daughter I thought I knew. That night, the interview aired, millions watched, and messages poured in, people from across the country sharing their own stories of betrayal, abandonment, and survival. I wasn't just James anymore. I was a mirror, reflecting their pain, their resilience. Emily didn't speak publicly, but sources close to her said she was devastated, that her life was falling apart, her clients pulling business, her credit lines frozen, her friends gone. Even her husband had issued a statement through a lawyer, filing for divorce, his abandonment a final echo of her own. Good. She'd built that life on manipulation, and now it was collapsing under the weight of her own cruelty. But I didn't gloat, didn't revel in her pain. Instead, I got to work. I made plans to launch a foundation, one that would protect elders from legal and financial abuse, not in name only but with real legal support, real funding, real advocacy. I named it the James Project, because if they were going to use my name to strip me of dignity, I was going to use it to give dignity back to others. The pain lingered, not because Emily was suffering, but because I had once loved her with a loyalty that blinded me. A love that saw only the girl she was, not the woman she'd become. Now, I had to learn to live without that illusion, to carry the truth instead, heavy but liberating. Emily's arrest didn't come with sirens or drama. It came with headlines, quiet but piercing. Emily Carter indicted on multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and tax evasion. I read the news on a quiet morning, my tea steaming in hand, my cat curled beside me, the house still except for the steady hum of the refrigerator and the wind brushing against the shutters. For a long time, I just stared at the article, not because I didn't believe it, I did, but because I'd imagined this moment so many times that when it finally came, it felt almost like déjà vu, a scene rehearsed in my mind. She was out on bond, of course, money can buy time, even when it can't buy peace, but the damage was done. Her name had become synonymous with betrayal, her reputation a ruin, her life a cautionary tale. I should have felt triumphant, should have raised a glass to justice, but all I felt was hollow, a quiet emptiness where victory should have been. The thing about surviving betrayal is that it doesn't leave you whole. It leaves you wiser, sharper, stronger, maybe, but something soft dies in you, that blind trust, that belief that love is enough to keep someone loyal. I didn't grieve that softness. I buried it, let it rest, and moved forward. It was a chilly Saturday when I walked into the town center for the first time since the interview aired. The Oregon air crisp, the sky a pale gray that softened the world. People recognized me, their eyes lingering, but they didn't whisper, didn't stare. They smiled, their acknowledgement gentle, human. One woman, maybe in her 40s, touched my arm as I passed, her voice soft. "You gave my mom courage to leave a bad situation," she said, her eyes bright with gratitude. A young man behind the pharmacy counter slipped a note into my prescription bag. "My grandma says thank you." I didn't seek this attention, but it came gently, like sunlight through heavy clouds, warming the parts of me that had grown cold. Sarah stopped by that afternoon, her face relaxed for the first time in weeks. "They offered her a deal," she said, setting her briefcase down. 10 years if she pleads guilty. If it goes to trial, it could be more. "And her?" I asked, my voice neutral, though a part of me already knew. She's still pretending it's all some misunderstanding, that she can outsmart the system. I shook my head, a wry smile tugging at my lips. She's been pretending her whole life. Sarah hesitated, her eyes searching mine. She hasn't tried to contact you. I met her gaze, steady, unflinching. Not directly, but I received something. A letter. An unmarked envelope slid under my front door one evening while I was in the kitchen, the intrusion silent but deliberate. Inside, a photograph from my 60th birthday, me in a grey sweater, laughing with cake on my face, Emily beside me, holding the knife, laughing too, the moment frozen in time, a memory of joy that now felt like a lie. On the back, just one sentence in her sharp handwriting: "You always believed in me." I'm sorry. That wasn't enough. Not for the years of theft, the abandonment, the lies that had torn our family apart. I sat with that photo for hours, not crying, not raging, just remembering. Remembering the girl who asked for one more bedtime story, the teenager who drove my car into a mailbox and cried when I didn't yell, the woman who hugged me tighter than usual the day Laura died, her tears hot against my shoulder. They were all parts of her, and I had loved them, every piece, but love demands truth, and Emily chose lies. That night, I burned the photo in the fireplace, not out of hate but out of release, watching the flames curl around the paper, blacken the edges, erase the smile. I didn't need a picture to remember. I needed peace, and I was almost there, the embers glowing like a promise of closure. The morning I returned to Sunset Haven, the sky was pale grey, the kind that softens the world without hiding it, the desert air cool against my skin. I stood outside the facility for a long moment, staring at the very place where I'd been left like luggage, the parking lot quiet, the pine trees bare but standing tall. Something had changed, not just the place, but me, the man who walked away from it. The front doors opened, and Jamal stepped out before I could knock, his face breaking into a grin. "Oh my God, James," he said, his voice warm, disbelieving. I smiled, the tension in my chest easing. "It's me." We hugged, not politely or briefly, but like two people who had both survived something, his arms strong, grounding me. It had been so long since I'd felt safe in someone's embrace, the warmth a reminder of what I'd fought for. Inside, the place looked different. The floors freshly waxed, the lights brighter, the common room alive with new books, a better television, and the rich smell of real coffee brewing in the corner, not the instant sludge I remembered. "I heard what you did," Jamal said, leading me to a quiet bench in the hallway, his eyes bright with pride. "The donations, the interviews, the foundation. James, you changed everything." I shook my head, my smile soft but firm. "No, I just stopped letting people decide who I was." We walked the halls together, the linoleum gleaming under new lights, and I visited Walter's old room, now a reading lounge with soft chairs and shelves of novels, a space for stories, not silence. The staff looked up, some smiling, some stunned, a few residents recognizing me, their nods a quiet acknowledgement. They weren't invisible anymore, and neither was I, my presence a testament to survival, to defiance. That afternoon, I gave a speech in the new activities room, folding chairs set up in neat rows, the staff passing out cookies, their faces warm with anticipation. Jamal introduced me, his voice carrying a hint of awe, but I shook my head, stepping forward. "I'm not here because I'm rich," I began, my voice steady, filling the room, "and I'm not here because I was wronged. I'm here because I was silenced, and I know how many of you still feel that way." Every pair of eyes watched me, some welled with tears, some bright with recognition. "I want to tell you something I wish someone had told me a long time ago," I said, pausing to meet their gazes. "You are not a burden. You are not forgotten. You are not finished." Applause followed, soft at first, then louder, swelling like a wave, warming me from the inside out, filling the cracks left by years of doubt. I smiled, feeling the weight of every lonely night I'd ever spent now replaced by something warmer, something full, something alive. When I returned home, I finalized the trust, ensuring the James Project would become a national organization, offering legal and financial advocacy for elders in danger of being exploited. We'd hire attorneys, launch hotlines, build partnerships with senior care facilities and courts, A network of protection woven from my pain, my triumph. Emily took the deal. 10 years, her letter returned unopened, the chapter closed, its pages burned. I spent the final days of the year writing letters to every person who helped me. Sarah, Jamal, Dr. Ellis, their names a litany of gratitude. I thanked them not for saving me, but for standing beside me while I saved myself, their presence a light in the dark. And then, on the first snow of January, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I wrote a letter to myself. Short, just 1 page, my hand steady as I penned the words. I read it aloud as I sat by the fireplace, the cat curled at my feet, the snow falling softly outside, blanketing the world in quiet. Dear James, I said, my voice soft but clear, you weren't crazy, just too trusting. You weren't weak, just a man who loved too deeply. And when they tried to write you out of your own life, you picked up the pen and wrote your own ending. I am so proud of you. With love, yourself. I folded the letter, placed it in a small wooden box, and set it on the mantel, beside a photo of Laura, her smile eternal, and a single pine cone from the Oregon forest, a reminder of where I'd landed, where I'd healed. I didn't need a legacy of money, revenge, or even justice. I had something greater. Freedom, hard-won, undeniable, complete. For the first time in my life, I was finally, fully, completely free.